I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
On Labor Day, no work, but a popular tradition takes over the streets of Brooklyn.
If you're not thinking very holy thoughts about being back at work, well, we've got some heavenly help for you.
We get our dignity as human beings by being productive.
And why Staten Island's Grunt Padre could one day be a saint.
Well, we come together to remind people of what he did. The whole concept behind the service is a spirit of self-sacrifice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday, the day after Labor Day.
That's right. Well, and for Brooklyn yesterday, the Labor Day itself was actually a very colorful and very exciting day. That's because of the annual West Indian American Carnival and Parade.
Not because I came back from vacation.
Well, okay, that.
This year was the 42nd annual carnival, and thousands of people flooded the streets to enjoy the food, the music, and the dancing, and to also celebrate their Caribbean heritage.
That's right, and it was a fun time for all. And for the past 4 years, the Diocese of Brooklyn has actually had a presence in the parade. Now, literally thousands of parishioners took to the streets at the front of the parade line yesterday. But before the parade got underway, the day got started with a special mass. Take a look.
For many, the West Indian American Day Carnival Parade is about letting loose, dressing in costumes and dancing down the parkway while celebrating their Caribbean heritage. But for the Diocese of Brooklyn, the mission is a different one.
This is 4 years we've been marching in the parade also as a diocese, which is something I asked that we do, and I think it's really taken off this year. We hope to have about 2,000 people in the march that are under the banner of the diocese.
It's to make sure that the impact of the church in the Caribbean is highlighted, and we want to celebrate that because the church, through education, through evangelization, through all sorts of works of mercy, has a great impact on the Caribbeans.
For people marching in the parade with the diocese, the day started with a mass at St. Matthew's Church on Eastern Parkway near Utica Avenue, right at the starting point of the parade.
Jesus said, go out into the whole world and proclaim the good news. And the whole world comes to Eastern Parkway and Utica Avenue on Labor Day. I always consider Eastern Parkway and Utica Avenue the crossroads of the West Indian world here. So Jesus said, go out to the whole world. That's what we're doing.
It's a tremendous celebration in the city of the West Indian culture, all the people coming from the islands, and we're part of it. A lot of them are Catholic, and we want to make sure we're in solidarity with the people that are here, and also to show everybody that the Catholic Church is part of the culture.
The church was filled to capacity with parishioners from all corners of Brooklyn and Queens who were united in their faith and their Caribbean heritage.
Well, the Mass is over now. It just ended here inside the church, and we move on out to the Parkway for the parade. Now, you'll notice a lot of colorful costumes behind me, a lot of colorful flags waving, and folks even draped in those flags as well. But you'll also notice a lot of red shirts, and those are the folks in the parade from the Diocese of Brooklyn. They're united in that color of red in those red shirts, but they're also united by a common purpose for being here today.
So that we'll be able to go out and evangelize. So that is one of the reasons. Also today is a West Indian parade, so definitely as a West Indian, then I definitely have to be there.
To evangelize as we go along. We are to become evangelizer, and this is a way of evangelizing to people, to tell them know that Jesus Christ is Lord and He's still alive.
Among the dignitaries marching in the parade, Mayor Michael Bloomberg and former Secretary of State Colin Powell. There was a lot of campaigning going on, of course, with a week to go until primary elections in the city. All the campaigning, though, didn't distract this woman from the real reason she was there.
Well, it's one way that the Catholic Church can evangelize on the Parkway, as if Jesus was alive now, this is probably where he would be, with the people.
Even with that being said, there are some people who don't like the fact that the diocese takes part in the parade. To them, Father Andy says,
just as we go down the Parkway, the response we get from people is really beautiful. We were singing a song praising Jesus and waving our hands like this, and everybody along the Parkway was waving their hands. There were even 2 Muslim women dressed with veils from head to toe, and we saw their hands were up waving like this also. So there's a beautiful communication between us and the people lining up along the parkway. I don't know why people wouldn't want us to be in this.
Love that.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. I didn't get to taste any jerk chicken. That's
Yeah.
what our
You were,
Shifty,
I
our
think,
producer.
the only white guy there, except for the politicians.
I think so.
Yeah.
It was like me. It was
No.
Bishop DiMarzio.
Yeah.
It was Mayor Bloomberg. That was it.
That's all right, though. You had good purpose.
Right.
It looks like it was a really good time. And obviously, a lot of people come out for it because it's a community event. It's a cultural event. But the fact that the church really has a strong presence there is really terrific. I think it is what they said, a nice way to evangelize and be where Jesus would be.
Right. And it was a great mass that actually took place beforehand as well. And there was a visiting priest who gave the homily there at the Mass, which was wonderful. And Bishop DiMarzio was there as well, as I talked to him. It was actually his first public Mass since he had his open heart surgery back in June. And I actually had a chance to ask him how he was feeling. Here's what he had to say.
Very good, yeah. Made it come back. It'll be 3 months and a week or so, but we're doing fine.
Well, great.
Stronger than ever.
Good. Coming back stronger than ever. He also told me that he couldn't really take part in the parade itself. There's some medication that he's taking. He couldn't be out in the sun for very long, so that was kind of a bummer for him. He wanted to be on the float,
Right.
But he couldn't do that because of the medication.
But he looks well. He seems to be in good spirits.
He does. He looks very, very well, and he's in great spirits. And
so parade next year.
Right, exactly. He'll be at the top of the float, I'm sure. Well, as I mentioned in that story, there's been some controversy about the diocese taking part in the parade. Well, a priest who ministers to the Haitian community tackles that controversy head on, coming up later on in the show.
But coming up next, a possible breakthrough for stem cell research. You won't believe this one. We have those and the rest of the day's headlines. They're all straight ahead.
And working better, what this saint can teach you.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up a little bit later on, remembering a war hero who may one day be a saint.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. As Congress is back at work trying to tackle health care, some scientists say they may have the solution to often controversial stem cell research. Stanford University scientists say they've successfully created embryonic-like stem cells from ordinary excess fat cells. Stem cells are lauded for their ability to morph into new parts like brain, hair, or eye cells. The Catholic Church, though, has denounced actual embryonic stem cell research, saying that it destroys human life. 10 nuns have crossed the Tiber. On Thursday, Baltimore Archbishop Edwin O'Brien confirmed the former Episcopal nuns and their priest chaplain during Mass. The nuns say the switch was fueled by a desire to seek Christian unity. They also took issue with their former church's ordination of women and a gay bishop. Turning overseas now, Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi says reports of a rift between him and the Catholic Church are a lie. Church officials have criticized Berlusconi for his lifestyle amid reports linking him to a prostitute and an 18-year-old model. His wife filed for divorce this past spring. Now, in defending himself, Berlusconi points to his government's opposition to abortion and the defense of the family.
Well, if Berlusconi wants to patch up his marriage, he might consider sharing an email account with his wife. That's right, you heard us. It's a growing trend among Christian couples. One man says that he previously hid his online relationships from his wife. Although he wasn't cheating, he says that he kind of felt like he was. Now he and his wife share an account to safeguard against the possible temptations on the internet. The Missionaries of Charity last weekend commemorated the 12th anniversary of the death of their founder, Blessed Mother Teresa. The Superior General says preparations are already underway for next year, which will be the 100th anniversary of Mother Teresa's birth. Well, look out, Ron Howard. You won't be the only one making a movie about Opus Dei. Roland Joffe, who directed The Killing Fields, you might remember, has begun filming There Be Dragons. That's based on the life of Opus Dei founder Saint Josemaria Escriva. The film is set during the Spanish Civil War in the second half of the 1930s. Well, Opus Dei means the work, and work is what many people are going back to on this day after Labor Day. I know I did, and we did here at Currents. But work isn't just a profession, as we learned recently when we sent out cameras to St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. There, the Edith Stein Guild held a special mass and conference on the Catholic spirituality of work.
When Jesus was talking to the crowds in the Gospel of St. John, he said, "My Father is working until now, and I work." I think what Jesus was saying is that everything that he did in terms of his ministry was a continuation of that original work that God did of creation. So my work is to help people to come to a more fullness of life. It is a living. Living is a way of being in the world, and serving others is being in the world, and that is a work in the world. We spend most of our waking days working at home, working even at hobbies, working for a living. We work, we have responsibility. The best we do that, the better we are being human. We get our dignity as human beings by being productive. I work mostly with people, one-on-one or with groups, and I believe that in that relationship, God is working in me and in the people that I'm relating to. For me, spirituality of work means that when I'm doing something, I'm doing it knowing that God is doing it with me, that I'm bringing some of God's purpose to enhance life for myself, for others, by what I am doing.
Spirituality of work also applies faith and Christian and Catholic guidelines to the way that we do operate in the work environment, the way we treat other people, the reason for work, the rewards of work, and where we put that in our priorities in life. It also helps us understand that by working, we share in the creating activity of God.
I once met a man who was a very devout and deeply committed Christian. And he happened to be a politician, and I asked him, you must be a wonderful, make a wonderful contribution to the people that you're serving because of your religious values and so forth. And he said, oh no. Since then I've heard other people say that they can split their morality, their personal morality from their work. We can't do that. We shouldn't allow ourselves to do that.
You know, our faith gives us the backbone and the reason and the love of the Lord, the love of each other as being made in the image of God, the reason to treat each other as equals, and the reason to know we work so we fulfill ourselves. We fulfill ourselves by using our gifts and talents.
I think we have to recognize that we all do have control. We can say, no, I'm not going to cooperate with this, I'm not going to do this. Sometimes take the risk of losing the job, but sometimes also you can change the system.
Edith Stein, also known as Sister Teresa Benedicta, was a convert from Judaism, and she actually died in the Auschwitz concentration camp.
Well, stay tuned. We have much more Currents coming up straight ahead. Coming up, the West Indian American Day Parade may be an institution, but does the church belong there?
There are things that we as Christians are against, sexual promiscuity and drinking, but we're not there to approve that.
Welcome back. Earlier in the show, we brought you the sights and sounds of yesterday's West Indian American Day Carnival Parade along Eastern Parkway.
And many may question whether the Brooklyn Diocese should even be a part of that celebration.
That's right, and to answer that question and to find out what the controversy is really all about, I recently spoke with Monsignor Joseph Malagreca. He's the pastor of Holy Cross Parish in Flatbush and the coordinator of the Hispanic and Haitian Charismatic Renewal for the diocese. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do with the diocese. I know that you work with Haitian and Hispanic Charismatic Renewal.
Right, I've been involved in the Charismatic Renewal since before I was ordained a priest, since college, in fact.
Wow.
And when I got ordained, there were very few groups in the diocese. So I began working with the Hispanic groups. They grew from 4 to the present 120 groups. And the Haitian groups, I went to a Haitian parish in 1980, so that's 29 years ago, and I've been working with all the Haitian prayer groups since then.
Wow. Okay, well, very good. So we're talking today, of course, about the West Indian American Day Carnival and the parade that we saw earlier on in the show. The diocese, of course, taking part in that now with, taking part in the parade itself. There are some maybe who would say that the church shouldn't be out on the parkway during this parade evangelizing. What would you say to that?
I think it's exactly where the church should be. I think it's brilliant that the bishop has decided to be involved in the biggest parade in New York City and in a parade that raises up Caribbean pride. Where should the church be if not in the world? If you want, the parade is a picture of the world. The church should be in the world. We don't have to bless everything that goes on in the world, and we don't have to bless everything that goes on in the parade, but we should be there.
Yeah. Well, there are some people who are, I guess passionately against it, saying, well, there's too much temptation out there on the streets during the parade. What would you say to that?
We're supposed to build ourselves to resist temptation, aren't we? I'll tell you a story. I have a young man in my parish who's a convert from Pentecostalism to Catholicism. And he told me that when he was in his Pentecostal church, they would go to the parade and stand on the street corner and preach against it. And every year as a teenager, they'd bring him out and preach against it, and he was completely ignored and was frustrated, and being Trinidadian himself, wanted to get involved, even though he's a committed Christian. Last year, he came with me to the parade and joined in a Christian witness in the midst of a parade. And he felt that he, for the first time, did something effective in the midst of something that he wasn't completely in favor of.
Yeah. Well, and that's an amazing story. And as you said, this parade's obviously a very big deal in the city of New York. I mean, the mayor and the governor are there to open up the carnival every year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it is a big deal. So it obviously gets the word out for the diocese on a large, grand scale that maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to have been gotten out there.
And there's a lot of positive things about the parade. First of all, it's about Caribbean pride, and Caribbeans should be proud of their culture. The parade raises up the consciousness of the city, of how many Caribbean people are here. Also, there's lots of talent and beautiful things that are put forth in the parade, both the pan groups and the singing and the costumes. And there are things that we as Christians are against, sexual promiscuity and drinking. But we're not there to approve that. We're there to encourage the pride of Caribbean people, and the Catholic Church is a very important part of Caribbean culture.
Right. Now, what kind of middle ground do you think can be found against those who are maybe passionately against being there for this parade and those who are passionately for that, as you are? What kind of middle ground do you think there is for those two groups?
I think it should be clear that the church is not blessing what's evil. And I think if people see that the church is not blessing or promoting the evil parts that might be there, and is strongly standing for gospel values, I think that's enough. The first part is a mass.
Right.
Yesterday,
Right.
Bishop Darius preached at the mass. He's a very prominent bishop in Grenada, known throughout all of Grenada and throughout the Caribbean, so that the church's presence is involved with prayer and preaching and mass. We're encouraged to give out rosaries and tracts inviting people to holy things. So our presence is not only a blessing presence, it's a presence that's used for evangelization.
Right, okay. Well, very good. Well, Monsignor, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
God bless.
Monsignor Joseph Malagreca there, obviously someone who is very passionately for the diocese being involved in this. And obviously there are a lot of those because, as you saw earlier, I mean, like 2,000 plus people from the diocese involved in the parade yesterday.
Just tons of people out. And I think one of the things about being a Christian is you're neighborly, right? You're looking out for each other. And you're also interested in bringing people in, as he said, you know, and evangelizing and whatnot and sharing your faith. And this is a community pride event. I see it as a little bit more than just something that may go off on the wayward, you know, as he said, with sexual promiscuity perhaps, or alcohol or whatnot. That may be something that, although it's not blessed or sanctioned by any way of the church's presence there, that exists, but that doesn't, I don't think, or hope not, diminish the community pride aspect of it.
Right, exactly, and it did not seem to. It seemed, you know, to me that from being there yesterday, that the church was really there as a way to encourage that, encourage, you know, being proud of who you are and where you come from, but also to be a ministering force as well. And you know, they all said, the bishop told me yesterday, Bishop DiMarzio and Bishop Sansaric both said, you got to go where the people are.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents straight ahead.
Coming up, a local war hero may be a future saint.
Well, finally tonight, this past weekend wasn't only a time for celebration and relaxation. On Staten Island, it was also a time for commemoration.
Sure was. A mass was held to honor Venerable Vincent Capodanno. Father Capodanno was a priest who was killed in Vietnam after requesting to be on the front line with Marines under the very heaviest of fire.
Certainly an honorable thing there. He's now being considered for sainthood, and tonight he is our saint in the city.
September 4th, 2009 marked the 42nd anniversary of the death of Marine Corps chaplain Father Vincent Capodanno. The attendance of the annual memorial celebration at Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island grows each year. Many recounted the story of his life and death, which had a clear effect on those who told it and those who listened.
The fighting was fierce, hand-to-hand at times, and the platoon was in danger of being overrun. Chaplain Capodanno went among the wounded and the dying, giving last rites and taking care of his Marines. Wounded once in the face and suffering other wounds that almost severed his hands, Chaplain Capodanno moved to help a wounded corpsman only yards away from an enemy machine gun. Chaplain Capodanno died taking care of one of his men. In 1971, Father Vincent Capodanno, Lieutenant, United States Navy Corps, received the Medal of Honor in recognition of his selfless sacrifice. In 2006, he was named a Servant of God.
May we strive to improve our lives by offering to help improve the lives of our fellow men, regardless of race, religion, or culture. Then we will be continuing Father Vincent's life work.
Well, we come together to remind people of what he did. The whole concept behind the service is a spirit of self-sacrifice. And we ask people to remember that in a nation today where I think that maybe that concept has diminished, it's depreciated. I don't see that people today are nearly as willing as they were 40, 50 years ago to lay down their lives for a cause that's bigger than themselves. And Father Vincent is the embodiment of that. He intentionally, willingly laid down his life to protect his brother, to stand up for what he believed in.
I want to thank each and every one of you for taking of your time to come and honor my brother.
He had the greatest love for his fellow man. The love and respect for your fellow man is not here anymore. Everything is with the dollar. The love for your fellow man has to come back. And maybe through Father Vincent, gradually it might come back.
Father Capodanno continues to touch people's lives as the cause to make him a saint moves forward.
Glorious feeling. It's a feeling you can't describe. But with all this, I wish he was here and nobody knew him.
Well, an interesting note there. You see around the city a lot of times intersections, parts of streets, or blocks that are actually named in honor of prominent people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, on Staten Island there, Father Capodanno has an entire boulevard that's named in his honor. So
yeah, well, he certainly paid the ultimate price for his service, but he obviously believed very much as part of his faith and service that he was where he needed to be.
That's right. And you know, we're talking in there a little bit about the military personnel that were at that ceremony of remembrance. Were talking a little about that concept of laying down your life for something larger than yourself, and that kind of being gone. And you know, I think maybe we've kind of seen that, but I think we're going to see here in the next few days, as we look back on September 11th, maybe that isn't always something that's gone.
Well, clearly, with the number of troops that we have abroad in Iraq and Afghanistan, there are many young men and women that are still, sacrificing their lives every day for that, and a lot of people that are helping them get through that through their faith. Recently, I was at the place in Manhattan, studying Bibles, talking about the whole idea of having literally new Bibles that were covered with camouflage and that spoke to certain passages for troops specifically, and so they could kind of get through that. So faith is always being integrated into, I think, sometimes what you're doing when you are in a situation that is putting yourself on the front lines like that.
Right, and definitely, Father Capodanno is something that someone that is very inspiring.
The embodiment.
And the embodiment, the epitome of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all for this particular edition of Currents. Tomorrow, kids go back to school. That's one thing that's going to happen, right? Also, forget the bar scene. We may have found a little bit of a better way to meet that special someone, and we're going to take you over there.
Oh, my goodness. That and more coming up tomorrow on Currents. And until then, remember, you can always catch us online. Now, last week I actually told you about our new website address. Well, it turns out, kind of jumped the gun a little bit. We were a week early, but we'll have a brand spanking new website up for you coming up next Monday. So log on then.
That's right. But, until then.
You can still log on now.
Well, you can continue to catch us at netny.net/currents. That you can find all you want to know. You can see clips of the show and check out our blog, Riding the Wave.
And you can also follow us on Twitter. Mm-hmm. That's another way to check in with us here at Currents. Twitter.com/currentsny. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.